Hi Urban Sketchers, this is Donald from urbansketchy.com, and in this video I wanted to set you a little sketching challenge. The challenging question is to sketch this entire scene from Venice in Italy in under 15 minutes using ink and watercolour. Is it possible to sketch an entire scene in less than 15 minutes? I wasn't entirely sure, I've never tried it before, but I thought that would be a fun experiment to try out. And so what you can see here is me doing the sketch in real time, and the clock in the top corner will count up to the 15-minute mark, so we'll see whether I managed to sketch it or not. If you would like to join in, the link to the reference photo is in the description, and all you have to do is grab your phone and set the timer to 15 minutes, or you can use the clock that's running in the top corner of this video if you like. And yeah, basically just sketch away and see how much you can get done in 15 minutes. You might not get it all finished, but what struck me actually as I was sketching this was not so much that it was fun, but actually I learned a few useful things from doing it. If you've seen any of my other videos or looked at my website, you will notice that the sketching style I'm using today is completely different to the way I would normally sketch. But because of the time constraints, the way that I usually sketch, which is a very solid line, wonky style, wouldn't really have worked. It takes me several hours, usually 2 or 3 hours to do an entire sketch. So 15 minutes, there's no possible way I wouldn't even have got close to finishing it. And the helpful thing about sketching in this way is that you can crisscross over all the lines and you can draw in front of other things you've already drawn, and it doesn't look out of place because it's all scribbly. And this style of drawing reminds me actually of, I don't know if anyone remembers the Roald Dahl books. They were illustrated by Quentin Blake, and he had a really sketchy, scribbly illustration style. And it was slightly like this, not exactly, but slightly. And all his characters and places that he would draw in his sketches were very messy, and I grew up reading those books and I absolutely loved them. So this is maybe a bit of a hark back to that. I realised at this point that I'd spent far too long doing the building, so I had to really speed up because that was 3 minutes in already and I barely even got started. So I moved over to the gondolas. This is a pretty tricky thing to sketch because I would always normally start by sketching a scene in pencil first. It's a bit of a safety net, but I had to push myself out of my comfort zone for this one. I didn't think I would have time to do a pencil sketch as well, so I had to jump straight in with the pen. And immediately I was seeing, oh no, I'm getting this all wrong. And the gondolas initially were just looking like bananas rather than gondolas, which was a bit of a disaster. But the point here is not to worry in the slightest about the end result. The point is to just sketch. If you make mistakes, just keep going, don't stop. And it's something I really believe is important in sketching. And especially in a sketch like this, you don't have time to think. It really forces you to just keep going when you're against the clock. And it's not a type of sketching that I would normally do. I don't set a clock. Normally, I've never done this before, in fact, but I found it quite interesting that the effect that it has by having a timer, you just have to keep going. It really forces you to just keep the pen drawing and keep scribbling. And even though the gondolas at the beginning do look a bit like bananas, by the end of the sketch, actually, the collective energy of all the boats being together and all the scribbly movements, it does give the impression of gondolas sitting on the water, even though initially it doesn't. So if you do decide to have a go at this, don't prejudge it, just keep scribbling, make as much of a mess as you can. Really what I'm trying to get across about sketching is that if you can remember when we were drawing as children, when we would just sit down and draw, and really we weren't overthinking it, we weren't worried about the end result, we weren't thinking about what other people will think or what will happen if we make a mistake. And the fascinating thing about sketching against the clock in such a short time scale is you don't have time to overthink it, you don't have time to worry what other people think, and if you make a total mess it doesn't matter because you're the only one that's going to see it. I mean, I made a total mess and I'm putting mine on the internet, but that's not something you have to do. All you need to do is make a mess, just do it for the enjoyment of doing it. Another thing that I learnt from sketching in this way, in this sort of a scene, is when you scribble like this, it does somewhat capture the energy of the place. And you get the sense that the boats are moving, and if I'd sketched that in my normal style, it wouldn't have felt like that at all. So that was interesting, and I actually really enjoyed sketching like this. I have sketched like this a couple of times right at the very beginning, when I just got into sketching and I was trying different styles to see which kind of style would suit me. And at the time I was kind of really didn't have much confidence in drawing or sketching. I hadn't done any art at all since I was a young kid, and so if I'd drawn this then, I would have thought, no, that's too messy. I certainly wouldn't have shown anybody. It would have just been hidden away in the drawer or stuck in a sketchbook that would never be shown to anyone. And it's funny how much things have changed, that I would sketch something like this and then put it online for others to critique. But it really just comes back to the point that I'm making, that it's not important about the end result. I really enjoyed doing this sketch. It was quite a different experience actually to do it to a time limit, and I really quite enjoyed that aspect of it. It's a fascinating lesson in scene construction, because normally, so these posts that I'm putting in now, they would have to go in first in my normal sketching style, because I can't have lines crossing over each other. It would ruin the effect that I tried to go for. But when you're sketching in this messy, scribbly style, you can get away with that. It doesn't matter about lines crossing over each other. You can see by now that it is starting to come together as a sketch. I'm about halfway through, and this was the point where I was thinking, well, I might actually be able to finish this in 15 minutes. What I had underestimated, however, was how long it was going to take me to draw the buildings in the far distance. And so I had to use very quick shorthand because the clock was starting to get away from me. But the foreground, I thought, turned out all right. I managed to salvage it enough to look roughly like the scene. I'm not sure why I actually picked 15 minutes. That was just a random amount of time, but I was starting to have to speed up a bit here because we were almost at 10 minutes. And bear in mind, I've still got to do the watercolour stage. I was starting to think that I'm not going to get this finished. So for the windows and so on in the background buildings, they just had to be tiny circles. There wasn't time for any detail. But actually that worked out okay, because buildings in the far distance, you probably wouldn't put in a lot of detail anyway. They would just be little circles. But again, when I normally do a sketch, I would put in lots and lots of detail of window ledges and so on, but there was really no time for that. And it was just a case of putting in some little marks and circles. And then I thought, right, that's the building's done, and then I realised I missed another building on the right-hand side. And I'm getting desperately short of time by this stage, so I wasn't entirely sure how I was even going to finish the ink drawing part of the sketch, never mind paint it as well. And with 4 minutes left, I thought, I have to go on with the watercolour. So using watercolour in such a short time frame really meant I just had to splosh it on. There was absolutely no time to think about it, no time for accuracy. It was get the colours down, splosh it on fast and loose. And again, having that time frame constraint really does force you to do that, because I definitely would have tried to be a lot neater. And I would have taken a lot longer with the paint and tried to fit it in better. There wasn't any time for this, so it was grab some blue, slosh it on. Then burnt umber for the background, and the speed that I was deciding what colours to use, I was basically just picking a colour at random from the tray. A couple of times I didn't even know the exact colour that I was picking, because often a lot of the colours in the tray look quite similar until they go down on the paper. So literally there was splash on a few lines, there wasn't any time for anything else, but that fast and loose painting, I actually quite enjoyed doing it. And it's not going to win any awards, it's not fine art. It's not even especially good watercolour paint control, but it's not about that. It was really about the challenge of just painting and drawing without overthinking it, and being in the moment of sketching and enjoying the process and enjoying the activity of doing it. So I really would encourage you to have a go at this. It was a lot of fun, and if you've got 15 minutes, then why not do it? You can sketch this scene, or you could pick another scene of your own. And if you do, whether it's another photograph or you go out on location and try something, set yourself the 15 minutes, set the timer on your phone, or use the clock on this video if you're sketching at home if you want to, and just see how you go on, see how much you manage. Can you complete it? You might do it a lot better than I did, but again, I must emphasise that it's not about the final result, it's just about enjoying it. Now by this stage, I was like, right, I think I've roughly got this done. I don't think there's much point in doing any more, because I would just start making a sludgy mess. So I kind of thought, right, I'm going to stop. But even when you tell yourself you're going to stop, you still keep touching it. I thought, right, no, I have to stop. So I give the brush a wash, and I stopped. 14 minutes and 22 seconds, an entire ink and watercolour sketch. It is possible. That's by far the fastest I've ever managed to paint watercolour onto a sketch. I think it was about 3 minutes. It was a bit of a record for me, but there we are. I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please download the photograph and have a go, and let me know how you get on in the comments. I'd love to hear whether you managed to complete your sketch in under 15 minutes. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, you can visit my website urbansketchy.com for more sketchy goodness. And now here's another sketchy video.